Hey everybody, before we get started, just remind you this episode is brought to you by patrons like Aga Comics, Qua, Jeremy Vasquez, Kylie Den, Nestor Flores, Soda Sun 042 and Video Gamer 75. If you like what we do and want to see us do more, consider supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early and lots of other goodies and help us out. Thanks for your support, everybody. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It is time for Enter the Dojo once again. I guess it's a video essay series about schools and the Legend of Five Rings RPG by Fantasy Flight Games, where we talk about schools and stuff, and some of their fluff, and a lot of their mechanics, and kind of how the two can interact, and are they good, are they useful, what can you do with them, that sort of general fluffle. So it's been a little while since I did one of these, but I decided it was about time to do another one, squeak one in before the holidays fully kick in. And people tend to get super busy. So I figured I'd do this one. And there's no, special theme or anything to this. I don't even know what a Christmas-themed one would be. I mean, I could have done that as the Deer episode, but then I'd have to explain how Christmas is a romantic holiday in Japan. And that doesn't even make any gosh darn sense for Rokugan. Anyway, I was thinking about what are the schools I wanted to do and what have I not done duplicates of. So there were a couple there that were like, who's next to double up on and continue working through some core book classes. So today I settled on, as you can see from the thumb and other stuff, the Doji Diplomat school. So the core courtier school of the Crane clan, the Doji school. I decided I would cover that as one, because it's a really good example of what a courtier school can be. I think Akoma's the other, really good typical example, though obviously some things could be said about Bayushi. We'll get into that further. Scorpion's next on my double list, and I'm not sure who to handle. Should I do, Bayushi Manipulator, or should I, branch out into talking about Yogo and talk about prepared invocations, because that's a thing that really confuses, nettles, or just has people curious. Anyway, don't know. Leave your comments below. But yes, today we're going to talk about Doji. And there's not really a lot of pre-intro. You should know most of what you need to know about intrigues and other social stuff from various other conversations we've had, and we've talked about courtiers in general, so most of the finer details can probably be talking about the school itself, so let's jump on in. So, the Doji Diplomat School is purely tagged courtier. It is an all-courtier school. Though, as you'll note, that does not bar you or restrict you from taking kata, just that very obviously when making this character and when playing this character, the general notes for you and the GM is you'll be doing more courtierly duties. So your rings are air and water. Makes perfect sense for a doji. You're all about subtlety and charm, friendliness. You get to pick 5 skills, which includes aesthetics, composition, courtesy, culture, design, government, and martial arts, ranged. So, first of all, you notice you have a lot of art skills here. Smithing is the only one not, but you're not an artisan school. Your focus of your school and your curriculum and your ability are not necessarily based around art, but art can be helpful to you. I would recommend you should probably pick 1 or 2 arts that you're into, because that's just the nature of the Doji family and the Doji school, and maybe stick to those, but you don't have to. Courtesy, obviously, is a very big deal, and then courtesy and government just makes sense. And then you could take the free point of martial arts range if you want to just not be useless in combat. You do get an option for weapons in this set, so you could take a bow pretty easily and take your point of martial arts range and just roll with it. And that seems fairly, on point, right? You're not helpless as a courtier, but you aren't necessarily leaning that way, and most of your purchases of various katas will probably be out of school. But hey, you've got the free XP. Honor is 50, similar to Kakita. By the way, spoilers for the latter half of this episode. Well, I don't know what we have, but the latter sections of this episode, there's going to be some reused Kakita assets, because there's no reason to make them over again. But you have high honor. Honor is, while not entirely defined by the Crane, Akoto One Eye himself wrote the book on Bushido, but the general courteous, honorable, proper conduct is a very much Crane thing. As said, you have available access to Kata's Ritual and Shuji, pretty typical for most non-supernatural schools. And for starting techniques, you get to pick 1 Shuji out of Cadence, Shallow Waters, and Whispers of Court, so basically pick your favorite basic one. Shallow Waters is pretty good, as is Whispers of Court, but if you're playing with other courtiers, especially other courtiers who may be taking Cadence can be great. And you also get early access to Lady Doji's Decree, the special Crane Shuji. So that's cool that you still get all that. And what that does is basically once per session, you can make a courtesy void check, targeting a number of characters up to your school rank. The TN of the check is equal to their vigilance, highest vigilance. If you succeed, they cannot perform attack actions against you for a set duration. And then you can move this on to other things, and even if you spend a couple of ops, you can even extend this to schemes. So it's basically like the no button, which can be very useful in coordinating defenses and making sure you're not getting beat up in a brawl. And just has a very powerful effect that you can just command silence in a room at a time. Just channel that power in there. And your school ability is Speaking in Silence. That's right, Way of the Crane is the thing about crits. This is Speaking in Silence, which is another thing they're famous for. Once per scene, when making a roll to persuade or influence someone, so not necessarily tied to a skill check or a group of skills, but somewhere in there when you make a roll to do a thing, you can add a number of kept ring dice set to opportunity equal to your starting school rank, or equal to your school rank, not your starting school rank, that would be dumb. So basically, this is pretty typical for the opportunity add type of school abilities. When you do a thing, you add opportunities. That's immediately helpful, but only gets to be more and more helpful. Like, imagine if you could do that Lady Doji's Decree, and then by the time you get to rank 2, you can always just say, we're influencing. I'm trying to influence everybody to hush up for a second. And as a GM, I lean towards that's allowed, because that's the kind of thing where you're spending your once per scene on it, and I'd be like, okay, you only get to do this once per scene, so that's a little sketchy, but I'll let it fly. And generally, it really helps activate your Shuji game, because there are lots of Shuji which are based on spending ops while you do another roll, and this is not tied to ring or anything, just persuade or influence. It's a pretty basic school ability, so there's not much to talk about there, but it can be quite powerful and useful. And then for starting outfit, you get ceremonial clothes, you get a wakizashi, you get a Yumi or Yari. I would recommend the Yumi, because that seems more to your skill set, but hey, you can be a rebel. You get a calligraphy set, a traveling pack, and an attendant or a Rokugani pony. Gotta be honest, really depending on your build, the attendant is probably the best way, because that's a really easy source of skilled assistance, or even just unskilled assistance. Whereas, depending on what you're doing, the pony may or may not be useless. But also, you would have a pony, so there's that. Other than that, not much else to talk about it. The school here, as you can see, there's a little bit of martial potential. Members of the Doji family are not helpless. At least those who go to this school are not helpless. Someday we'll talk about Doji Bureaucrats, which is a very interesting school, which I'm pretty sure is for very specific campaigns, but makes sense. If you are actually playing the fabled Winter Court game, where the only kind of fighting will maybe be a duel, you could totally be the guy who can't fight at all. Anyway. Yeah, so the school has a little bit of combat potential as befits many types of samurai, but generally arts and social skills and knowledge is where you're at. Like, and I say social skills because that'll obviously broaden out later, but courtesy is your main thing. It's the thing you're known for. Similarly with culture, but also government's a big deal. And later you can probably pick into command and other stuff if you want to, but courtesy is like the Doji Diplomat thing. Wherever there is a court that the Doji are interested in their politics, there are some Doji diplomats there negotiating with people about stuff. Alright, so let's talk about that school curriculum overall. Alright, so that school curriculum. If you're new here, it's time to give me that reminder. You can ignore that left-hand side of your screen for now. We will circle back around to there, but that's talking about how we get access to some stuff and kind of work some things. So, let's start at the top. So, hey, guess what? At rank 1, you get access to social skills school group, aesthetics, culture, and composition. So those are probably going to be a lot of your core skills here, is various social skills, art skills, and some scholar skills, which with the group opportunity, as you can see in some of the branch out, that you could branch out into other areas and they're not necessarily super rewarded, but they're all kind of there. Right, those are pretty fun. You get a rank 1 air shuji. You get access to civility foremost. Is that 2 or 3? Because I had this question earlier when I was actually... If you actually do look at the left, I have civility foremost on there again. Just because there are times when this game gives me... Yeah, okay, so that's normally a 2. You should probably pick that up now because it's really important. As opposed to at rank 3. Actually, I might go ahead and edit that out of there now. So you won't see it in the final version. But I'm going to mention that I had it on my list in sketching this out. Because I forgot to double check the curriculum. And also it's like... There aren't a lot of rank 3-ish or 2-ish Earth Shuji that you need, but that's a discussion point for later. Anyway, you also get early access to the tea ceremony. That's a pretty big deal, I think, for you, so you should probably want to take that. Tea ceremony is nice and a cool thing you can do, and also gives people back void points. So overall, getting in there, you've got a couple of early access choices that are pretty primo and are generally on point for you. Civility Foremost, by the way, in case you forgot, is just simply the one that lets you make it so people cannot attack an individual of your choice or forfeit honor and suffer strife. So it's, it's kind of a soft tanking ability. It just means that people cannot attack or scheme against them and be like, hey, let's be polite here. At rank 2, you get scholar skills, so you could branch out into other areas besides, I think, culture and government. Yeah, just skimming that, it seems like culture and government are the ones that appear the most. So those would probably be your primary scholar skills, but you could branch out into something like medicine or theology if you really felt like it. Or is sentiment technically a... Sometimes I forget. That skill sometimes confuses me. Is that technically a scholar skill? Culture, government, medicine... It is. Okay. So for when you're talking about categories of scholar skills, and obviously you can, with skill groups and stuff, you can maybe buy a couple in there and still get all your EXPs. I don't believe that the book explicitly says that you, check something off. It's just obviously you have to buy in the thing that counts. But yeah, so sentiment is probably a good choice for you just in general, but it is not necessarily the focus of the school. That could, talk to some people about the arrogance of the crane. Their school teaches you all about being polite to people and persuading them and understanding history and formal etiquette and stuff, but not understanding people at all, which is funny. You do get command now, so you don't have to worry about necessarily making, half-point command purchases if you can wait to rank 2. You can get a couple ranks in there and set yourself up. Courtesy shows up again. It is your main thing. And you get a little bit of tactics, again, reminding you that this is not a pure non-martial school. You get ranked 1 to 2 water shuji. You can get Artisan's Appraisal. That's a very solid one. That's rank 2 air? Yes. That's a pretty good one because that's when you do games air, artisan skills air, which you'll probably do in performance air. You can spend opportunities to learn about NPCs or individuals and kind of figure out some stuff about them, including for NPCs you can learn their demeanor, which is very helpful for social stuff. So that's a really important buy you're going to want. And then is the wind blows both ways. That's also normally a rank 3. That's when you're making courtesy or performance air. You get more opportunity spends to increase the amount of glory either they gain or they forfeit. So that allows you to subtly manipulate glory for people. Again, kind of reminding you that, hey, you're a social subtle master. You are helping bring your friends up and your enemies down and understanding them. At rank 3, you get the full set of artisan skills. You get courtesy, games, and performance, so basically doubling down on some of those social skills, courtesy especially. I believe, yeah, so courtesy is what I would call your quote-unquote core skill, because at every rank you can buy it either as part of a group or it's directly on the list. So, in case you can't tell from your curriculum, that means you should probably be buying courtesy if you're staying on point in your school. Now's as good a time as any to mention that, as always with all this advice and stuff, you don't have to play your character this way. It's just important to understand that both mechanically and role-playing wise, when you make decisions that are not reinforced by your school, you are deliberately stepping away from your school. And that can be cool and interesting, but you should be aware of it because it could have potential ramifications both for your overall rankitude, not even sure what that first word I was trying to say, and also role-playing stuff. So, if you're trying to be a really on-the-nose, on-the-ball Doji Diplomat, courtesy all the way. And it's fun to see a pickup of games here. It's a little late, but that makes some opportunities, you're not wrong to invest in some games-focused shuji. Mostly appearing in Courts of Stone. So you get rank 1 out of 3 Earth shuji, which I'll talk about. That's a little complicated. You get access to Ebb and Flow. That's water. Yes, that's a rank 3 water when you're making a Courtesy Commander Games Water. Oh, you make a Courtesy Commander Games Water against that person. If you do, you can invert advantages or disadvantages. Again, that kind of soft social buffer. And you can also get another water Shuji Regal Bearing, which means you can manipulate how people observe your social status, which can be very helpful. Maybe a little scummy, but hey, I'm important. I'm a big deal. Talking to me is important. Very helpful for what your character is probably going to be assigned. Rank 4, social skills returns. You also get another run of government, another run of composition, and another run of tactics. Remember that the Doji are the ruling family of their clan. They are the ones descended directly from Akami, though obviously because Lady Doji's husband was Kakita, it's a little complicated. But still, they are the ruling family, and they have a cool thing with their ancestral clan sword that if you try to draw it and you're not directly descended from Lady Doji, it fucking kills you. So, that's a thing. But yeah, so don't necessarily skimp on tactics. You can be in fights. You get rank 1 to 4 Air Shuji. You get early access to Bend with the Storm, which is the rank 5 Air Shuji. I think it's the only rank 5 Air Shuji we have right now. Bend with the Storm, just a quick, is when you're doing a social skill air check, you can basically make people believe you have advantages or disadvantages. So you can give the impression that you're good at something or that you are bad at something to kind of bamboozle them. It's a pretty decent way to manipulate negotiation tactics. And then you get Pillar of Calm. That's one of the Earth ones. There's a couple of Earth Shujis which are all similar, and I always have to double check them. So Pillar of Calm is the de-escalate the conflict. Okay. Alright, so that's useful because if you get good enough at that, you can de-escalate all the way down to intrigue. Or at the very least, I believe that means you can turn, is the order of that? Yeah, you can turn a skirmish into a duel. So at the very least, you can put something more in your... If you're just about to have a brawl in the street or something, you can turn it into a fight that's advantageous for your side, probably, because you are a doji. And if you're good at it, really good, you can... Or you're already at a duel you don't want to be involved in, you can de-escalate down to an intrigue, a social conflict. And then at rank 5, Scholar Skills returns again, and you get Aesthetics, Courtesy, Command. Aesthetics is not as universal, but that's a really handy artisan skill for you to have, along with possibly composition, so you can manage all your various aesthetical things. And you get another rank of command in there. So you get rank 1 to 5 Void Shuji, and you get Buoyant Arrival. That's the water Shuji that if you do goo, you make a scheme action. You can enter or exit a scene or conversation without forfeiting honor or glory for interrupting or anything, and just boom in or boom out as you need to. Which for a courtier is very handy. That's a very good Shuji to have, to just insert yourself or just remove yourself from a conversation that's not great. And you get Immovable Hand of Peace, which is the other one of those Earth Shujis. That's the one where if you succeed, you turn a scene into an intrigue between the principal characters. And if you can, turn it into you can basically resolve it socially completely, not even de-escalate, just everybody hold up. What if we just talked about this for a little bit? And if you can resolve it in the time window you have to talk about it, it's over. Very handy. And then your rank 6 mastery ability is the Lady's Grace. Once per scene, you may spend 1 void point to reduce your strife to 0. When you do, each friendly character in the scene may reduce their strife by your honor rank. So, that just continues your, hey, you are the social mastermind. You are the social master, you are helping your friends, and being yourself the perfect epitome of grace. So that can be very handy in social scenes when you get there. But also, hey, if you branched out, that can be helpful in duel scenes. To just be yo. And, well, not necessarily 100% kosher, that would totally be on point for you to just have somebody else duel as your champion and you're in the back and be just yes, I'm going to spend a void point. I'm incredibly graceful in the background, and just slurp away 5 or 6 or more strife, assuming you're decently honorable, because that would be on theme for your school. So, you get to strife battery people a little bit. Very helpful. So, those technique recommendations. So, you get rank 1 Air Shuji. Now, by default, I have recommended Rustling of Leaves, and that's if you're making a social skill air check to spread a rumor as part of anything. You can spend opportunity to make it so that people can't trace it back to you. And the reason why I say that is because the other 2 rank 1 ones, which is Cadence and Whispers of Court, are on your choice list. So the asterisk there is whichever technique you didn't pick, or both of them if you picked Shallow Waters, for instance, is perfectly good for you to pick up. So Whispers of Court is you spread a rumor to the entire court, which, if you're actually trying to spread rumor as part of an intrigue, gives you extra momentum points. But in general, it can just be used to, manage rumors in a scene. And then, like I said, cadence is a fun one where you can convey secret messages to people either who have cadence or who don't have cadence if you have enough opportunity to spend, which your school ability can help with, but if you're passing secret messages all the time, you don't necessarily want to be relying on your once per scene ability. But yeah, like I said, cadence is kind of if you know, for instance, because it's easier, if you know for sure anybody in your party also is picking up cadence, pick up cadence just so you can do that kind of secret communication. And also it can maybe help you with other NPCs, because they can learn techniques too. So rank 1 to 2 water shuji. Primarily, I have recommended a small handful here. So all ingest is rank 1. You can obviously pick that one up earlier if you want, but that's a pretty decent one because when you're making certain water checks, if you wanted to move around and kind of poke people in the areas which are not necessarily polite, you can kind of spend opportunity to wiggle away any honor you may have forfeited for stuff, which can be very on point for you. Similarly, by the way, if you didn't take Shallow Waters, you should pick that one up because that lets you just spend opportunity to learn things about people when you are interacting with them with water. But the other ones are Well of Desire and Tributaries of Trade, so obviously I know the Doji are not necessarily a trade-focused clan, they're not necessarily monetary. Commerce appears nowhere in your curriculum at all, no trade skills do in fact, but Well of Desire is related to courtesy when you give gifts, and that can be really handy. You will probably be giving gifts a lot as part of your social oeuvre. And Tributaries of Trade to acquire a gift to give and stuff. That's only a TN1 commerce check, and it can make it very opportune for you to be able to go, yes, attendant, fetch me the gift. And despite slippery maneuvers being good here, I have kind of left that one off because it's mostly for a skirmish and mass battle stuff, and generally, you could pick it up if you wanted to be a more militant, a more fighty doji, but by default, I'm not necessarily going to recommend that because while it is on point, I don't know how much you will be jumping into skirmishes. After all, several of your techniques are focused on basically getting out of a skirmish by talking. So you could pick that one up, I'm just not recommending it necessarily as on theme for the school. So, rank 1 to 3 Earth Shuji, there is this kind of question mark, right? So, currently, I don't think there's any good extra Earth ones. There's just Touchstone of Courage at rank 3 for now. Yeah, that's rank 2, rank 4. And I think all the other ones that are added are like rank 4 or rank 2. So, there's not a wealth of rank 3s, and as I said earlier, you could totally take Civility Foremost early anyway, so it's kind of So Touchstone of Courage is for any conflict scene, buff everybody removes strife, and everybody increases their composure. Like I said, that's a good thing for you. You are the strife bot. You are like elevating everybody, removing their strife, working people up. You are de-escalating conflicts, usually as a doji. You are making your allies stronger and making your enemies weaker. And this is just another thing to be like, all right, everybody stay cool. We're fine. I'm in charge of this conversation. Also, it's rank 1, so you really should have picked it up by now, but I'll just throw in a second recommendation that's not on the list. If you didn't pick up Weight of Duty by now, please do. That's much like Shallow Waters. That's just another good one where you should gain those to learn things about people. Those opportunity spends are really helpful, even if Earth is not necessarily your immediate focus. So then the next one, you get rank 1 to 4 Earth Shuji, so the obvious one is Wolf's Proposal. That lets you fake out people about your honor score. That's not as big of a deal as a doji. On the other hand, though, you're supposed to be very honorable as a doji, as a member of the Crane Clan, very polite and proper. So if you aren't, it is absolutely essential that you have the ability to appear honorable to other people. So that's a big deal. All right. And possibly there may be times when you are way too honorable to be in on a conversation and you need to drop Wolf's Proposal to be like, excuse me, no, I'm super scummy. Y'all don't even know, kind of thing. And then the other one is, like I said, I don't like to recommend necessarily stuff from extra books inherently, especially but Courts of Stone has been out long enough, so I'm going to also recommend to you Hidden in Smoke, which is another of the new shuji that are in there. That falls under air, it's rituals. Air shuji. So Assess Strength is a rank 1, for instance, that you should consider picking up. That requires you to make a games check, though, so I don't know if you want to start out that way, because you don't have easiest access to those in other ones, and that lets you assess martial skills, tactics, and games. But it has some interesting op spends, so that's kind of a wiggly one. But Hidden in Smoke is basically once per scene as a scheme action, you make a social air check, equal their vigilance. If you succeed, you hide your true goal or objective from your opponent. Any action or ability that would reveal your true intentions or objective reveals a false objective. And if you succeed during an intrigue scene, you also gain a momentum point. You can spread these out to additional targets or spend extra opportunity to gain momentum. Since this is also once per scene, it can mesh perfectly with your school ability. So, hey, you're at rank 4, you can add 4 opportunity dice. Did I bump my mic a little bit in there? I might have. Sorry about that. My microphone's in kind of an awkward position for my mouse again. But you can just add 4 kept dice to opportunities. That means you get 3 momentum points, and you can hide your objectives. So, that can be very helpful. And as long as we're talking about it, there are a couple of water shuji that are also low rank in Courts of Stone that, again, they're pretty easy, but you should consider them. Fun and games can help you with that, healing everybody's strain, and beware the smallest mouse can futz around with people's vigilance and opinions of you, which kind of drive your targets. You can make yourself appear less important, even though that's not usually what you do, but you can do some cool functionary stuff. And if we were to do a Doji Diplomat, they would have several of those, so we would surely be talking about them. And then, lastly, at rank 5, you get rank 1 to 5 Void Shuji. So, honestly, this is just a good excuse to pick up any Void Shuji you might have missed. For instance, if you don't have stuff like a Samurai's Fate or Courtier... Well, yeah, you should just have Courtier's Resolve. That's another one of those general things. That's a Void Shuji. It's rank 1. Pick that one up already. You can remove Strife equal to your Glory rank. That's very valid for you. But All Arts are 1 is a pretty good one because you're going to have some stuff like games, possibly a martial arts skill, performance, whatever, to learn new things about things. Samurai's Fate can kind of help people in combat, but that's not really your deal. But Rouse the Soul, on the other hand, is a good one because anytime you're making a void social skill check, you can spend one opportunity, of which you guys can do a lot of it, including stuff like afflicted, enraged, exhausted, intoxicated, or unconscious. It's just very handy for you. And in future, there may be more Void Shujis of that higher rank, which you can consider picking up on. Alright, so that's the tech base. That honestly didn't take too long to walk through. The Doji Diplomat School is very focused. Like, sometimes we talk about these schools where you have these kind of 2 routes. This may have a little bit of a second route if you wanted to focus harder on tactics, focus harder on government. You could be a much more tactically minded, a much more possibly militarily minded, observant kind of... You could play a Doji Diplomat and still be in curriculum and play one who is a manager type, like you are a governor, you're an advisor to a governor, that kind of role, like you are directly related to advising people, but your school is still the diplomat school, so influencing people, raising your friends up socially, lowering your enemies socially, that kind of thing, that is a little bit more effective to your wheelhouse. But if you were getting to a higher level game and it's like, oh shoot, somebody's going to end up being like a daimyo or something, or a governor, or, ruling a castle, as a Doji Diplomat, you could totally step forward and say, well, my character's got all these ranks and stuff like command, tactics, and government. I think it makes sense for them to take that position over. And if you wanted to, I have generally avoided a lot of the more skirmish-focused shujis, but you could totally take stuff like slippery maneuvers, that sort of thing, to be like, yeah, sure, I'll be immediately helpful in a combat situation. So overall, keep those in mind when building out your thing. And like I said, these aren't required, they're just some general observations. Courtesy comes up a lot. You're going to be very courteous no matter what route you take if you're buying in school. And you want to buy in school because you want more opportunity dice. Free opportunity dice, basically. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about clan stuff and family stuff and other stuff. So, quickly, let's examine the slide for Crane Clan. Now, obviously, there is no rule in 5th edition saying that you have to be from the same family or clan as your school. However, as I like to say with these videos, I would be here even longer, though this episode has gone by pretty quick. The school for Doji is pretty straightforward. Not a lot of extra bells and whistles. I would be here even longer if I stopped to talk about literally every possible clan family combination. So mostly I like to just use this as an excuse to kind of talk about the clan effects and the family effects and how those apply to this school. And then hopefully you guys can take that logic and kind of see what makes sense as a good match, what isn't necessarily a good match, and kind of figure that out on your own. Explore. I'm going to leave you with some questions you can ask yourself. So the Crane clan, they're a clan. Their ring bonus is air. Again, pretty obviously fitting their character. Their skill is culture. That makes sense. That's kind of their hat. Their status is 35. They are one of the 3, as I like to call them, core great clans. They are all clustered around the capital. Very important. And they have 4 families: Asahina, Daidoji, Doji, Kakita. And at some point they had 5, because I believe that, depending on, I think on the timeline, Yasuki used to be a crane family about the same time that they added Asahina. So they used to be big like crab. And like unicorn, but not right now. Just the 4s. Though, again, as funnily enough, all of those are technically from Doji, because that was the followers of Kakita, who married Lady Doji. Daidoji was one of their sons, and then Asahina was founded by Anasawa, who came in and married a Doji. So it's all very interrelated, which is not necessarily 100% normal with clans. Like, only with Lion are the Kitsu more directly a fork of Akodo. Ikoma and Matsu were just followers of Akodo. And there's been some interrelation over time, obviously, but they weren't, like, directly related from the start. Alright, that's me blabbing about Crane Clan lore. Let's move on to families. Though, hopefully, obviously, on that last slide, it was pretty apparent that culture and air make sense for this school. So your 4 families, you've got the Asahina family, who gives you Water or Void and access to Aesthetics or Theology and Glory 40, starting with 6 Koku. While the Asahina is primarily a Shugenja family, obviously not all members of a Shugenja family are Shugenja, and it could be perfectly reasonable that one of them might end up in the Doji school because they are technical pacifists, especially as Shugenja, but I think in general members of the family are just pacifistic. So, while not as, obviously like I said, not as limited as the Doji bureaucrat school, who don't get access to kata at all, you can play this school completely non-violently. And so that could perfectly make sense for you to play an Asahina and maybe go, like, water leaning. That would put you at, I believe, 3 water, 3? Because you get +1 from the school to both of those, and then you get +1 air for your clan. And yeah, so that would put you at 3/3 water, air, which would be very on point. And then you get Theology is technically in your curriculum. There are a couple of scholar skills. And Aesthetics is also very much in your curriculum. The Daidoji family can get Earth or Water. Their skills are Fitness and Tactics. Glory 40, starting with 7 Koku. I would say it's probably not necessarily normal for a Daidoji family member to go into the Doji school. Like, part of the thing they do is they protect for the Doji, so reassigning them to a Courtier school would be a little bit weird, or at least assigning them to that Courtier school, because there is the Daidoji Spymaster set up in Courts of Stone, and it's alluded to that they have some kind of mercantile smugglery organization that needs to be like a title or school curriculum or something. But you got Water in there, and Earth is also key to several interesting abilities for the Doji. That's a 3rd solid ring for your choice. Fitness is not necessarily on point, but Tactics does appear a couple of times explicitly in your curriculum. So if you were going to make that more martially Doji, like for instance, if you were a Daidoji who was like trained in diplomacy and logistics and organization by the Doji, that could fit in perfectly. Then obviously there is the Doji family itself, rings, air, or water. Courtesy, design, or your core skills, Glory 44, starting with 8 Koku, you're pretty rich. Fits perfectly. Honestly, if you're doing the Doji Diplomat school, you're almost always going to pick water, so similar to Asahina, you can do the 3/3 trick. But you could also just pick air and get a free point in anything anyway if you want to move it around and do some shenanigans. Courtesy and design are obviously on point for you. They make a lot of sense. Design doesn't come up as much, but you got a couple opportunities to take it, and you can easily work your way up there. And Kakita is air or fire, with Aesthetics and Meditation as their core skills. Their glory is also 44, and they're starting off with 7 Koku. There are plenty of other family members, including Doji, who, if they want to go martial, train in the Kakita dueling school. So just as easily, if you are diplomatic. And in fact, I believe even one of the current Kakita daimyo, Kakita Yoshi, I believe it's explicitly mentioned that one of his sons is at Shizukatashi, the school where the Doji diplomats are trained. So obviously that works out well. That means you're probably going to be picking fire for maybe a slightly unusual one. You can have some fun with some off-curriculum shuji choices in fire. That's really not a thing normally where the doji school leans, but you could have some fun in there if you were trying to do a slightly off-brand or slightly interesting take on a Doji Diplomat. Or you could just go air and do the thing I mentioned with the Doji family and just use the rollover. All in all, a lot of the families are on point, and so you can kind of see those options there. And don't think that necessarily just because fire or void isn't immediately relevant to your curriculum that they're not bad choices either, if that's the kind of character you want to make. You even do have, for void, you have the rank 1 to 5 void Shiji at the end, so you'll want to work your way up there, but obviously you probably will anyway because of mechanic, but still. Those are your families, and hopefully those thoughts will help you if you are designing a out-of-clan Doji Diplomat. And that is our episode. Kept it pretty short this time. Usually I release an audio version just because they're so long, but this is only like 35-ish minutes now, and it probably won't get much longer than 40, because I don't have much to talk about in this intro slide. I don't even have a cool outro slide. But just keep that in mind. So yeah, that's basically everything. Doji Diplomat, it's an interesting school that is pretty laser-focused on the various things you can do with intrigues and social scenes and persuasion. It's got some air, so you could be very sneaky if you wanted to, but it has other rings too. Water is a big focus, and so is earth. And, like I said, they're very flexible, but also very utility-based. Like, you could specialize in certain areas, or you could just generalize. Work very good as Babby's first courtier school. Overall, still not sure what next episode I'll do or when I'll do it. It'll probably be next month because of holidays and stuff, but you never know. In generals, the next one is probably going to be a double up on one I haven't done yet, so I think that's Crab, Scorpion, Unicorn now, so it'll probably be Shinjo or Bayushi just to get some more iconic schools out of the way, and that would be the Bayushi Courtier. I'm still not ready to start mainlining going outside of main schools. And depending on when Path of Waves actually comes out, like when that is in January, because that's still where it's scheduled to go, I will probably tuck in that Worldly Ronin episode in there somewhere, if I think of it. Alright, and if you have any suggestions for a school in particular you'd like to see next, go ahead and leave those in the comment section down below. Also, if you have any other comments, they can go there or go on our Discord. That link is in the description as always. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing so you can always get our latest videos when I release these, L5R news, other stuff. And even if you're already subscribed, considering that bell for notifications so you always know when we post a new video or stream or whatever. And so I will see you for the next Enter the Dojo, whichever school that takes place. And consider, like it says at the front of the episode, supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early when I release audio formats for these because they're super long. Those are available to patrons. Lots of other stuff. Really helps us out. Really helps the channel expand and grow too. Alrighty, that's it. I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.